we'll go ahead and get started. There may be some other people coming, but those of you who are here, we've got a lot of ground to cover, so I want to make sure we have time to do it all. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming to our ICOM mailer seminar. There are a lot of changes that are happening as of January 5th of 2013 regarding folded self-mailers. And I've got some examples here that I'm going to hand out to everybody that, for instance, this mailer, which is perfectly legal to mail today, has 8 things wrong with it that will not allow you to qualify for automation discounts after January 5th, 2013. So I'm going to give everybody one of these. Okay. And our objective here today is to enable you to understand what all 8 of the problems are with this thing. When you walk out of here, you'll know what the 8 things are that are wrong with this, and plus a whole bunch more things that you need to know going forward. This mailer is, like I said, legal to mail today at automation discounts. It won't be after January. Inside of this mailer is another mailer that is compliant with all of the rules that are going into effect in January. So Summer's going to tell you what those rules are so that you won't make any mistakes that could potentially cost you lots of extra money in postage. Take it away, Summer.
Welcome. This is what you look like now. When we're done, you won't look like that anymore, I promise. Okay, so the first thing we want to address is why is the post office revising these standards? Here's some picture evidence as to why they need to do this. When the mail runs through the machines, they get jammed, they get ripped, they get destroyed, and it never gets to your recipient. So these standards are to prevent that from happening from now on. So the first thing is, what is a folded self-mailer? A folded self-mailer is a single or multiple unbound sheets of paper that are folded together and sealed to form a letter-sized mail piece. So in this instance, it's an 11 by 17, quarter folded to 5.5 by 8.5. So what's changing? Well, the dimensions are changing, the weights and thicknesses are changing, the paper weights are changing, the closure methods are changing, the fold style and orientation is changing, flaps and panels, and address placement. That's just kind of a summary. We're going to go into detail on each of those items. So the first item is the dimension. The new requirement is that the height is no more than 6, and the length is no more than 10.5. Currently, it's 6 1/8 by 11.5 is the maximum size. So they're shrinking the maximum size. So your piece can no longer be 11.5. It can only be 10.5. Same length. And they're putting a cap on the weight. You cannot go over 3 ounces. If you go over 3 ounces, it has to go into an envelope. And then they've also said that you have to have a minimum paper weight. So as of right now, you could mail a 60-pound sheet tri-folded as a self-mailer. Starting in January, it has to be 70-pound minimum at a 1 ounce design. If it's over 1 ounce, up to 3 ounces, it has to be an 80-pound minimum. And all of this must happen by January 5th, 2013.
Are they changing their weight method for papers? Because a lot of the mailer guys that I talk to always talk 28-pound, 24-pound. You know, are they?
This is based on a text weight, so 70-pound would be 28-pound, 80-pound would be 32-pound.
Is the USPS changing how they describe that in their manuals, or are they still sticking with bond?
No, these rules, they're using the text grade weights, but they also, okay, I think, in the DMM, Domestic Mail Manual, also make the equivalent bond.
They give you both?
Yep.
Okay.
Now, the question is, how is the clerk at the business mail entry unit going to know whether that's printed on 70-pound or 80-pound? Chances are they're not. But you don't want to be the first person that they catch. So,
Summer,
Mhm.
sorry, could you repeat what the maximum height is now?
The maximum height right now is 6 and an 8.
6 and 8, okay. Thank you.
yeah,
And-
so.
And what do those text grades convert to again? You were saying-
70-pound is 28-pound bond, and 80-pound is 32-pound bond.
Okay. Thanks.
So they're also changing closure requirements. For tabs up to 1 ounce, you're going to need 2 1-inch tabs. Currently, the requirement is 1. And mailers over an ounce need 2 1.5-inch tabs. Currently, it's a 1-inch tab. And if there's perforations or inserts in the self-mailer, you're going to need 2 2-inch tabs. These are gigantic tabs.
Wow.
Mhm.
Huh.
2-inch, yes.
Yeah, so you can imagine on your 10.5 by 6 mailer, you've got 4 inches of tabs. It leaves you 6 inches of space on the top of that mailer. It gets pretty hideous looking. But there are some alternatives.
So they're also allowing glue. You can do a continuous glue line across an 1/8 inch wide to seal it. You can do glue spots that are 3/8 inch in diameter, 3 to 4 spots. Or you can do elongated glue lines or what look like dashes, 1/8 inch wide, 3 to 4 lines.
So if you have 2 spots in there, can they reject your mail possibly?
Correct.
Because now a lot of guys are getting away with 2.
Yeah.
Which is typically more cost effective, the label, the tabs or the glue?
It depends on the design of the mailer.
Okay,
Generally, tabs are cheaper
okay.
in most cases. So there's some folding changes as well. We have 2 options for folding. The first is a horizontal fold. So you can see here that the final fold must be on the bottom of all of these. They're taking away the option to have an open edge at the bottom or below the mail panel. You must have your final fold below the mail panel in all cases. On a vertical fold, it folds to the right of the mail panel, not to the left. It can also fold to the left, but the final fold has to be to the right. And you can see there's a couple of tabbing options. So you can have, in the horizontal fold, 2 tabs at the top, or 1 on the lead edge, 1 on the end edge, or 2 on the lead edge and 1 on the end edge. And here you can have 1 at the top and 1 at the back end, or just 2 at the back. Or you can do the glue lines that seal all the way down. So 2 folds perpendicular create a quarter fold mail piece. So like we were talking about before, the 11 by 17 piece that folds in half is considered a quarter fold. You need your spine on the first fold to be to the right of the mail panel and your final fold below the mail panel. That is required. So the open edges are all to the left. If you're putting in a reply envelope, the reply envelope must be attached with either a glue dot, or you take the flap of the reply envelope and tuck it under a flap within your self-mailer in order for it to qualify for automation postage rates.
So no more loose business reply envelopes in self-mailers.
Excuse me. So if you are doing enclosures, the maximum thickness of the attachments, the paperweight is 0.05 to 0.09, which that's pretty thick when you're considering cardstock. And like I said, the attachments must be secured, but they have to be a 1/2 inch from the edges. So you're going to need to measure over a 1/2 inch, and that's where it's going to be secured. And when it says the loose enclosures must be made of paper and remain secure in a pocket, that does count also for folding the flap of the reply envelope under a flap within the mailer itself. can't go through the entire mail piece, they can only go through one panel. If you do a circular, you have a 2-inch max, rectangular, you have a 1.5 by 2 max, and you can have a 1/4-inch radius on the corners. The placement of those holes is 1/2 from all edges and 5 inches from the lead edge on the non-addressed side. So in this case, you're looking at an example of the non-addressed side and they're putting it to the left.
And also, if you use these die cut holes, it's gonna require two 2-inch tabs.
Correct. So, I don't know if anybody uses flaps, but if you are using a flap as a closure method on a piece, which I have an example of. This was with fugitive glue. So this is considered the final closing of the piece. The flap can be on the back side of the mailer. It's a 1.5 minimum flap and no closer than 1 inch to the bottom edge of the mail piece. So this piece would be okay. If you do the side or vertical, you have a 5-inch minimum flap and you're no closer than 1 inch to the trail edge. And you can secure these with tabs and or fugitive glue. This one was fugitive glue. And they're just saying there that the die cut shapes are allowed as well. So how do you figure out how many panels are in your mailer? Panels are formed when you fold the paper. So if you take an 8.5 by 11 and you trifold it, that has 3 panels. So you can have from 2 panels to 12 panels. If you go over 12 panels in your self-mailer, it has to go in an envelope. It's no longer considered a self-mailer. I don't know why you would have over 12 panels in your self-mailer, but today.
And good luck making 12 panels weighing under 3 ounces.
Right.
But Summer, that's 11 inches is over the new max, correct? The example was over the new
Good
max.
catch. You
Right?
you get the
You are
gold
correct.
star.
Okay,
Yeah.
because that's where my problem's going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, has to be 10 and a half.
Okay.
Just for the sake of disclosure, many of these graphics came from the United States Postal
Oh, I
Service.
figured that. I did not think it was you.
Go figure.
That was my first thought was them.
Sue?
So, forgive me for being this way, but I'm thinking to myself, okay, stocks come in standard sizes.
Mhm.
So, with no bleeds or anything now, we're gonna be trimming stock just to meet the needs of the postal service, right? I mean,
Yep.
there's not gonna be like a new industry of new size stocks all of a sudden, you know? So,
Yeah, I mean, your 8.5 by 11 format is still okay because even if you fold it in half, it's 5.5 by 8.5. But a pretty common format is an 11 by 17 trifold. It goes to 5.5 by 11,
right,
which will no longer be able to mail that way. You're gonna have to cut a 1/2 inch off of it.
right.
So to get around that on some of our newsletters, which we have several of them, we, instead of doing a trifold, we do it 8.5 by 5.5.
Mhm.
So that would get, so we would just lose a big chunk of our content.
Right.
Well,
Or add another panel.
Or, yeah, add another panel.
We have
or-
one of ours, is just an 8.5 by 11 sheet. It's a little newsletter that we do, and then it's just, like this.
Well, that's okay,
That's okay.
because it's 8.5 inches wide. It's not neither.
That's true,
it's
you're right.
It's
Yeah.
like 3 8/5 by
That's
8.5.
true,
You're
yeah.
still okay there.
Still okay, okay.
But there's another rule coming up that you need to pay attention to.
Damn, I just had my heart
Don't go
beating
away.
again.
This
So-
is it.
This is address placement.
That's the one I heard.
The address, they like to the mid, to left position is preferred, but that's what the post office prefers. That's not a requirement. We don't really
Okay.
observe that. This is the one that everybody's going to really hate, and that is the address must be on the center panel.
Okay.
So, for instance, this particular regular mailer right here would no longer qualify because this mail panel is at the top of the sheet. It needs to be right here in order to qualify for automation postage rates.
Holy moly.
Yeah, it has to be on that center panel so that the final folded panel is behind the mailing panel.
Say that again, please.
It has to be in the center panel so that the final folded panel on the mail piece is on the back. Address on the front, final fold on the back.
So that when you're folding it, pretend the address is here, you're folding it, the final fold is back here. So the address panel is right here.
So
They
what
want
was that?
nothing loose towards the front of their machines, huh?
Right.
Yeah, but you know, the strange part about that is you take an 8.5 by 11 and you fold it in half, right? The address is here, it's still got the same problem, right? It's got the address
Loose on the
is
front.
here, but when it's a trifold, it has to be over here. I mean, honestly, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but it's the post office, so they're not required to make sense.
So that was my question. It's only for trifold.
That
This
is- that's-
particular.
That's correct.
And perforations must now be on the non-addressed side. Currently, you can have a perf on the mail panel of your piece. Starting in January, the perfs must be on the back panel, not the mail panel. Okay, so now that I scared the crap out of you. We're at the summary part, so we made it through the whole thing. So to summarize the new requirements, the new dimension height is 6 inches maximum, and the length is 10.5 maximum. The weight is no more than 3 ounces. The paper weight is a minimum of 70 pound on 1 ounce and 80 pound on anything over 1 ounce. The closure method options are based on design, and they'll either take 2 tabs or 3 tabs. There will be no more 1 tabs.
And it says non-perforated tabs.
Non-perforated tabs.
Non-perforated.
Are they changing the requirement? No more perforated tabs?
No more perforated tabs.
So that, no more plastic tabs then, huh?
No, they have to be paper and not perforated.
They'll allow you to use plastic tabs. They're not
I've
saying you
gotten
can't,
those without
but
perfs,
you
and then-
can't open them
Yeah,
without
you get them without
perfs.
perfs and you just shred
Yeah.
the piece.
Exactly. You rip it to shreds and then it's worthless. So for folding style and orientation, the horizontal has to have the final fold below the mail panel, and the vertical has to have the final fold to the right of the mail panel.
I'm sorry, that was me whispering.
Oh.
Final fold is the last flap that closes the piece, right? Or is
That is correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And if a flap is used, that can be the final fold to close the mail piece, like the example I showed you earlier. Die cut holes are allowed, but they can't be through the whole mailer. Inserts and attachments have to be secured, so you can fugitive glue it on, or you can tuck it around a flap, or you can insert it into some sort of pocket that you've created in your mailer. And then the addresses must be on the center panel, and perforations must be on the non-addressed panel.
Hey, you guys.
What's the difference between an insert and an attachment?
Well, I have an example actually. In this particular piece that we do, we attach a card.
Okay.
So this would be an attachment. An insert would be on this particular piece, business reply envelope.
Yeah.
So right now, what we're currently doing is we just throw the envelope in there, tab it all around, and call it good to go. Starting in January, we're not gonna be able to do that. We're gonna have to tuck the envelope under here to secure it in position, and then 2 tabs. And of course, they have to change the orientation of their mail panel because it's not the right way currently.
Now, how do they know how you've inserted the,
The post office reserves the right to open your mail.
okay.
So they can check when we go to do verification at the post office, they weight verify it, they look at the pieces, and they can actually open to make sure that everything is valid.
Okay.
They do it a lot on nonprofits to verify that you're mailing something at a nonprofit rate that you're allowed to mail at a nonprofit rate.
A lot of times we have to get an okay first
Right.
from the post office.
Right.
Okay, so now comes the quiz. You all have this in front of you. Some of you have already cheated and looked inside
Sorry.
and seen this stuff.
Sorry, I didn't know there was a test.
Okay, so what are the 8 things that are wrong with this mailer?
Can we just shout them out?
Just shout them out.
Eleven and big.
Okay, it's 11 and a half inches long, right? That's one. There's a perf.
The
That's
tab
2.
is, the tab's too small.
Tabs are too small.
It opens on the wrong side.
Opens on the bottom.
How many is that?
Closed edge is on the left.
Yep,
Should be
it's
on the
open,
right.
it's open on the right. I don't know, I lost count. That's
Is everything
about
loose in here?
6.
Yeah, the other
Yeah.
mailer was.
Yeah, there's a loose,
Non-attached attachment.
there,
Right.
that's right.
One more.
And there's one more that's not obvious, but this thing weighs more than an ounce, and it's printed on 60-pound equivalent text weight paper.
You got one more.
What's one more?
Postnet barcode.
Oh, yeah, the PostNet barcode. Okay, that's not gonna be allowed either.
Oh, yeah, it's on 4-way.
Now, you have till January 27th to switch over to the Intelligent Mail barcode, but all of you who are ICOM customers, we always use the Intelligent Mail barcode, so you don't have
It's something
anything.
we don't have to worry about?
You don't have to worry about that, Kathy, that's one thing,
We're already doing that.
Thank
that's
you.
good. So then, inside of there is the good mailer that will be legal to mail, and the reasons for that are, it weighs over an ounce, it's printed on an 80-pound text weight paper. It has the fold at the bottom and the final fold on the right edge, and it's closed with the 1.5-inch tabs that are required for mailers that weigh over 1 ounce. It has the perforation on the back, I think. Maybe we left that out. Okay,
Which is even better.
the imaginary perf is on the back, okay? And it has an Intelligent Mail barcode on it. So, really, there's not a whole lot of difference in the presentation. If you look at both of these mailers, they both have pretty much the same content, the same look, the same message, everything. So you can comply with the rules without really significantly changing how you present things. You just have to make sure that when you're doing folded self-mailers, that you have the size right, that maximum 6 by 10.5, and you have all the folds right, and the paper stock's right, and all the other things that we just talked about. So it's very doable. But now you know the rules, so you can do it the right way.
How about postcards? Are they changing the 6 and 8 by 11-inch postcard requirement?
Not
So-
yet,
Not yet, no.
no.
Interesting.
But, well, because those aren't folded, so they don't tend to come open. They're usually on heavier stock. They have to be on a minimum 9-point
Right.
thickness stock, so they're not jamming up the machines. But I can almost guarantee you that that 10.5-inch will come down the line because they're trying to make everything fit into their auto trays, and 11-inch pieces don't, but you still can't use that oversized postcard.
As soon as you fold it, though, even if it's a postcard folded, then it's.
Then it
self-made.
becomes a self-mailer, yeah, exactly.
So like with the flats, like our newsletter that we do a couple of times a year, I mean, it's an 8.5 by 11, but it's flat, we don't fold it anymore, it's stapled.
Okay, these rules only apply to letter size
Right.
self-mailers. They're flat,
But nothing's changing for the,
nothing is,
those right now.
no, they've already messed with you on the flat, so, they changed the address placement, has to be on the top half when there were folds on the right and all.
I just figured we were getting all that down, so they would change it again.
Now, you get to pass on the letter size booklets, they changed those rules 2 years ago now.
That's
Well,
saddle stitched, anything saddle stitched.
Anything that's saddle stitched or glue,
Right, or spot, right.
glue bound or anything like that, has a lot of tabbing requirements that change the flats, addressing standards and that kind of thing with the top half of the flats, but now they're at the self-mailers. Next comes the postcards. And I'll tell you what the postal engineers would love to see is everything in an envelope.
Yeah.
You know, that's really what this is all about. They're trying to create something that acts like an envelope in their automated machines. But I mean, the truth of the matter is they were having a lot of difficulty because their machines were made to go so fast. I mean, if you watch these sorting machines at the post office, if anybody's ever seen these things, it's a blur. I mean, those things are just going, and they've got, you know, hundreds of bins for these destination post offices and everything else, and these things are just flying in there, you know, sorting them out. So you can imagine what happens when a machine's going that fast, and all of a sudden, poof, this thing folds up, 1,500 pieces behind it do the same thing. It's, you know, from a mail services provider perspective, these rules are, we hate them because it's difficult to do all of this stuff, you know, the tabbing and the closures and everything else, all the complying with all the rules. From a designer standpoint, nobody likes it. And it begs the question of, you know, if these self-mailers were around all the time, why didn't the post office try to come up with some equipment that could handle them instead of, you know, saying, well, that's our equipment, so we're not gonna change it, but you mail service providers and you mailers have to go invest in a bunch of equipment that complies with our rules. But, you know, that's our problem, and that's the business that we're in, and those are the problems we have to solve. These design issues with the folded self-mailers are things that you now are armed with the information that you can solve those problems. Anybody else have any questions?
To Caroline's point, from a production, does it take y'all more time to tab or to glue, or what's, I mean, do y'all prefer a design either way, or?
Well, it's easier for us tabbing in line to put two tabs on the top than it is to put one on the end and on the front and the other one on the end, because it just goes through the machinery faster and easier. So from that perspective, we like that. But as far as, you know, it's a lot easier to affix 1-inch tabs than it is 1.5-inch tabs. And 2-inch tabs are even worse, but if you have a design that has to have those 2-inch tabs, which would be anything like this piece that has an enclosure, or a piece that has a die-cut hole in it, requires a 2-inch tab. And as far as glue versus tabs, I think from the recipient's point of view, fugitive glue is usually better because you don't see the, I mean, this piece, the tabs are almost invisible, but
That's fugitive.
this is glue. You got anything that's got, well, I mean, you know, if you took this piece and with all this color on there and you put tabs on it, this is also fugitive glued, so you don't see the tabs on the outside of it. And this piece is fugitive glued. It's a heck of a lot easier to open that than it is to sit there and put your finger under a tab and try to pull it off or rip it, or like Ben said, if the tab's on there too tight, you wind up peeling the ink or the top layer of the paper off. But if you give us this piece already final folded down to this size, we can still fugitive glue it, but we have to open it, put the glue on, and close it back up again. Our machines can do that, but it's really easier if we get the piece flat and we score it and fold it and glue it all in one thing. So if we get the piece, like a piece like this, you don't have a glue option because you've got 4 pieces of paper here. You'd have to put, you know, 2 glue dots here, 2 glue dots here, and 2 glue dots here, which is, you know, that's not even an option. So these quarter folded pieces like this, the only option you have is to use tabs.
Unless you create a folded panel.
Well,
To the back.
I don't know how you do that on a quarter folded piece though.
I don't know, but
Yeah, unless it was die cut, I guess you could do that. Any other questions?
So I have a question. If we were to mail this, instead of folding some of our pieces, 8.5 by 11, mail it flat,
Flat.
it still really doesn't get through because you've got the 11 here.
A
Well,
flat,
then it becomes a flat.
Then it's become a flat, even if it's multiple pages.
If it's,
So to get around some of this, we could stop folding newsletters.
but flat postage
It's more
is
expensive.
double.
Considerably, double.
Yeah, it's double what you're paying. So it would be about the same as if you didn't comply with the new rules and you mailed this as a non-automation piece, is pretty much the same as the flat rate.
in the case of
Correct.
nonprofit, there's not that much difference
Oh, that's
between
right.
automation and non-automation rates. It's a special thing just for nonprofits. So we could potentially mail your mail non-auto. It costs you a little bit more than mailing auto, but still might end up working out better for you as far as the design goes.
So we don't have to change anything.
Is that still true with the new postage rates?
I haven't looked at the new postage rates.
Okay.
I need to look at the
Yeah,
postage.
another warning.
They're proposed postage rates
Well,
right now.
I can guarantee you that they will go into effect at the same time as these rules, right? January 6th, or is it the
No,
27th?
January
20
27th or 28th, something.
27th is when the intelligent mail barcode
Yeah,
has to
that's when
be
it's supposed to.
on the piece. So after January 26th, all automation compatible pieces will have to have an intelligent mail barcode on this. And this, right now, it can be what's called basic IMB, which means it's just like a regular barcode. In January of 2014, the Postal Service is saying that they're going to require full service IMB. Full service IMB means that every piece is trackable. So we have to put tracking information into this barcode, which is easy to do. I mean, we do full service intelligent mail, barcode mailings now. We've been about 3 years certified to do full service, and we do it for some of our customers because you get a $3 per thousand discount for pre-sorted for first class mail and a $1 per thousand discount for standard mail. That doesn't amount to very much, 0.1% or 0.3%. So it isn't a huge incentive, but if you're doing millions of pieces, it can add up and make it worthwhile. So we do now do full service, but as of in January of 2014, at least that's what they're telling us now, there could be pushed back. I don't know for sure, but everything will have to be full service intelligent mail barcode.
Those look any different, Greg? The full
No,
service?
you couldn't tell the difference
Couldn't.
between a basic or a full service barcode. Look exactly the same, but it's got information encoded in it that tells who the mailer is, who owns the mail, where the destination post office is, and every step of the way through the postal routes that it goes through. Every time it gets to a station, it gets scanned, and that information is fed back to the central HAL computer that tells it that mail's there. So you can basically follow your mail all the way across the country to the destination post office. It doesn't follow it to the customer's mailbox, but the last place that it's scanned is the local post office where the carrier is going to deliver the mail to the customer.
And we can actually generate reports that provide you with that information as well.
The ultimate goal is what the Postal Service is calling seamless acceptance, which means that, as Summer was saying now, when we take mail and present it at the Margaret Sellers Post Office up off of Carmel Mountain Road up there, which is the sectional center facility for San Diego County. When we intermail there, any mail that's going within San Diego County gets a discounted postage. So a lot of you have local customers that it's saving you a considerable amount of money to mail there. Right now, we take the mail, we present it, they take out samples, they weigh 10 of them, make sure that the weight's right, they check it against all of the paperwork that we file online now. And they've got clerks there that do all of this stuff. Takes a long time, very labor intensive. What seamless acceptance is supposed to do is to eliminate that step completely. You file all of your paperwork online, which we already do through e-documentation. And the post office knows that mail is coming. It's been assigned a code that they know that's the mail. You take it up to the post office, you leave it on the dock, they take it, and as it goes through the mail stream, it gets scanned, and they'll have machines that'll weigh each piece, and they'll look at all of the sortation and everything else, and that's the way they're going to verify the mail. Sounds great, but what if there's something wrong with the mail? You know, right now, we take it up there and they go, oh, you know, this piece doesn't weigh the same as what you have on your paperwork. Maybe the printer changed stocks on us or whatever, because you know how those darn printers are. And we have a couple of them in the room, so that's why I just thought I'd mention that. So we have the option of fixing it. We can take the mail back and we can do something else to it if it needs to be. We can represent it. It's been fixed and everything's fine. Well, if there's something wrong with it and it gets discovered somewhere down the mail stream, what do? What they do is they come back to the customer, in this case if it's a mailing for the zoo, and they say, oh, guess what? Your mailing, this was wrong with it, and we're going to have to charge you X amount more in postage, and we're going to take that money out of your permit. And you don't have any recourse. You had no opportunity to fix it. You had no opportunity to fix your paperwork or whatever the heck was wrong with it. Well, you know, that's a big issue in the mailing industry. But I can tell you right now, seamless acceptance is coming down the pipe. I would guess, well, I talked to the business mail entry supervisor today, and I'm told 3 to 5 years. If it happens that fast, I'd be surprised, but within, 5 years is probably a pretty good guess as to when all this is going to happen. So it becomes more and more and more and more important that we get everything right as your mail service provider, so that you don't get that call or you don't get that email from the post office saying, hey, guess what? We just took $3,000 out of your permit because your mail wasn't in compliance. So that's the reason for the intelligent mail barcode. That's where it's going.
It's gonna put a lot of onus on the mail houses to make sure that.
As if we don't have enough already.
Correct.
Yeah. It is, and there's no doubt about it. Because who are you going to blame if the post office says your mail wasn't right? You're going to blame me. No, her.
I like the other idea.
The truth is right now we have to make sure that it's right, but the underlying truth is that you all aren't always aware of is there have been times when we've got, our driver's up there at the post office and the clerk is telling him there's something wrong with that mail, and we appeal that to the supervisor, and the supervisor says, no, you gotta fix it. That mail goes right back on our truck, comes right back to our plant, gets fixed and resubmitted. I mean, that's invisible to you, didn't cost you any money, but, those kind of things happen. We won't have that option anymore, so that's a little bit scary. Any other questions?
Just a comment that, I don't know what kind of organizations or companies you guys are, but for us, we do essentially the same thing every year, So it would probably be smart to start with the samples of last year. I'd be like, okay, so we know we do 3 of these, like our newsletters, which I think are fully compliant right now with the exception of the inserted envelope, but, you know, that'd probably be a good place to start, cause you guys are gonna be smarter than us, you know. Then we go back to the printer and
See,
say,
we got her
we gotta
fooled.
change this, you know. But, I mean, that's sort of what I'm thinking, you know, from a production standpoint, it's not cheaper slash faster for us to put things in envelopes, like for us and for you guys, is it? You know,
In
like
most cases, if you're using an envelope, it's going to cost you more.
yeah, I mean, it costs more for us to print it, but from production, it still costs more, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you have the cost of the envelope itself, and then you
Right.
have the additional cost to insert it, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
versus,
that's rarely the best option.
I'm
And
just,
they're not all, you can't do all envelopes automated, so
Right.
some mailers, you know, all of a sudden you
Right.
gotta do this whole thing by hand, you know.
yeah.
Which brings up another point, I know you all wanna learn something else too, but, you mentioned reply envelopes. You're gonna have to start on, I don't know how many of you are using the reply envelopes where they don't come back to you and you pay your mailman the postage for them. It gets taken out of your postage account with the post office. If you have, what,
Business reply now?
yeah, I know, but there's
Well, it's QBRM,
QBRM, thank you. Don't ask me what that stands for.
Qualified Business Reply Mail.
If you're using qualified business reply mail, your envelopes have to have an intelligent mail barcode on them, like that, not a postnet barcode like our bad mailer example was here. So, any of you who have QBRM reply envelopes, a lot of times you print hundreds of thousands of those things and you use them in newsletters and throughout the year. You're gonna need to change your artwork. It's easy to get new artwork from the post office. One of the few things that they do make relatively easy. But you're gonna need to make sure that you get those intelligent mail barcodes on that QBRM. Now, regular business reply mail where if you pay the mailman, he says, oh, you got this many, you owe me $1.20. That doesn't have to have an IMB. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That is correct.
Okay.
And also on courtesy reply, if you're asking the person to put a stamp on it and send it back to you, you don't have to have the intelligent mail barcode on that one as of right now as well.
So any old QBRM mailers that may be out there, let's say you did a survey card for somebody and it went with product and it's 3 years old and it finally gets to the guy that's using it and he throws it in the mail, do we know what's gonna happen?
No, it'll still,
You get there,
It'll
maybe they'll
still
ding him an
come
extra
back.
nickel because it's not the qualifying barcode or something.
They're gonna be verifying that at the time that we submit the mail.
Yeah.
So they're gonna look through, okay, you're sending out, you know, your business reply piece, this is a QBRM piece, it has a barcode on it, it can't mail at automation postage rates. So all of a sudden, you're not paying automation postage rates, you're paying, non-auto postage rates for your outgoing mail.
because everything that's included in outgoing automation mail has to be in and of itself automation compatible. So if you have a business reply envelope in there, QBRM envelope in there that has a postnet barcode in it, your mailing just became not automation. Even though you've got an IMB on the outside, you've got the wrong barcode on a piece on the inside, you're gonna pay non-auto postage for that whole mailing. So make sure that you watch out for that. But as far as old pieces coming back, because they will for some time, that isn't gonna be an issue.
You mentioned something about a manual. I guess I'm a noob of doing this only 3 years. There's a manual somewhere that's
Yeah, there is a
legible
domestic,
for laymen.
yeah, there is a domestic
that thick.
mail manual. Actually, it's online now and it's fairly easy to navigate. You can get that at the Postal Explorer, that's pe.usps.gov or org. I don't remember. Dot-
Possibly go?
I think it's .gov. PE for Postal Explorer .usps.gov. If that doesn't work, put in .org. And you'll see a tab on there for the domestic mail manual, and when you click on that, you can sort that alphabetically, or there's some tabs on the side that, for letter size, first class, standard, letter size, flat size, all that kind of stuff. And, yeah, it's fascinating reading. I recommend it to everybody. If you have a tablet, good to read right before you go to bed. I guarantee you'll go to sleep right away. Yeah, actually, when we did seminars like this in the past, I used to print out the domestic mail manual, and it took like a 6-inch binder to put all this stuff into. So I'd be dragging that bad boy into the seminar and set it down, and I'd say, okay, I'm here to talk to you about postal regulations and what you need to comply. This is the domestic mail manual. We're going to go through this one page at a time. And everybody, really? It would take years to do that. But yeah, you can find all of this stuff at that Postal Explorer website. That's a good resource.
And I just double checked it, it is Gov.
It is. Thank you.
You're welcome. I figured somebody in the room probably has a smartphone.
Yeah, somebody's got the technology with them, right?
It's an exercise. You can download different things.
So you were saying for nonprofit, since we're almost non-compliant, there's not that much difference?
He is right that I do need to go check the new postage rates,
Sounds
because
good, interesting.
they may have changed that gap, because right now, there's just a few cents difference between an automated piece and a non-auto piece
Or
in the
non-auto.
nonprofit. Yeah,
So it
but
hardly
only in the
seems worth
nonprofit
it.
letters.
It hardly seems worth the work for us.
Right,
Well,
so,
it just depends on how many pieces.
Yeah, ours are so small for the development side.
Yeah.
I mean, we have such small mailings, I think the biggest one is 6,000 for publications.
so I'll have to check the
Okay.
postage.
Well, we'll
First
talk.
of all, figure out which ones are not going to be compliant. I don't think you do too many of them that won't be.
All of them would be non-compliant,
What are you
They've got
talking about that?
insiders, kudu,
and conservation update.
conservation update.
But they're trifolds, right?
They are, but they've got the panel on the wrong
On the wrong side.
side.
Oh,
They need to move the panel to the center.
but that's a fairly easy fix.
And we've got the opening on the wrong side too. On a couple of them, so, well, not on the one pager,
Okay,
but,
well, that's going to be a budget thing that you're going to have to.
yeah,
Make
well,
that
I'll
call.
talk to,
Yeah,
I'll
let
talk
us
to
look at
Summer and,
let us look at the new postage rates, because
Yeah.
it may. I don't think it changed much, but it may have. So
yeah,
we don't wanna
so I'm
steer you in the wrong
leaning
direction.
towards non-compliant.
Greg, even with these new rules, we still really only need to give you guys maybe 4 by 1 3/4 inches, half an inch up, half an inch over from the right, and the rest of it can still be a paint job, right?
Right.
So you don't have to give up your panel, you just gotta give up a piece of your panel.
Yeah. Or in the case of a trifold, change the panel.
Right.
You know.
You don't have,
it's like
have a hole in the middle of all the content.
this
That's
piece.
good.
This is good. Address is in the middle. Okay. Final fold is at the bottom behind the mail panel. And this piece is no good because the address is not in the center panel. So if this is the case with your pieces, it isn't a huge fix to just take this mail panel and put it over here, unless you've got some kind of a format that's going to completely mess up the readability of.
And actually, if you're flipping the panel, you're flipping where the fold is. So then your fold would be right.
Yeah.
So with the double parallel folds, it also needs to be not on one of the ends, it has to be on one of the two, on one, in its a middle panel somewhere, is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
Okay, so trifolds and double parallel, so,
Yeah.
What's double parallel?
like that,
Well,
It's an 8.5 by 14 that,
folded twice,
Folded
Yeah.
twice.
same direction.
so it would have an extra panel,
Okay.
folds in half and then in half again, so yes, it can't be on that final folded edge of those things either. Well, everybody looks thrilled with all of this information. The good news that we've been able to impart to you.
So with regards to the reply envelope, that's my big concern for us, but you mentioned, there might be times where it's more appropriate for you guys to score and, fold the piece. If I have something, an 11 by 17 that's quarter folded with an, inserted reply envelope,
We're doing
and
that
there's
for you
nowhere
already,
to
though.
flap it,
For you, we're doing, that one, your piece right now is compliant, because where we put the reply.
We open the quarter fold
We're
and
doing
tuck
that
it
now.
under the
We tuck it in
inside.
there on
oh,
yours.
cause you guys open,
Yeah.
that's right, you
Yeah.
open the reply envelope and then close it in.
For smaller quantities, that's a viable thing. I mean, if you're mailing millions of pieces, then we'd wanna automate that, and we'd probably fugitive glue that envelope.
Alright, so a tuck doesn't necessarily have to be a tuck, but just that, the piece itself
Right, we're
goes
taking
over the envelope itself somehow.
Yeah, this is an example. Okay, here's, the flap is over this part right here,